bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? Today is Thursday. It is. It's Thursday. It happens to be Thursday, February 8th, 2024. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Very excited about the show tonight. That's right. Dr. Bruce is with us, Dr. Bruce Solheim. And we are going to be talking tonight about, well, a lot of things, but centered around E.T. human integration and his future book project and what he is working on now. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I want you to help support what we do around here by getting your Fade to Black t-shirts. We have 2 shirts. 2 ways to get them. The links are below. And you can also scan this QR code. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's an inside joke between Bruce and myself. And maybe we will talk about that. We're going to now, if you get a Game Changer membership, and the links are below, you will get, in addition to an autographed t-shirt, you will get, and shipping is included, you will get Fade to Black blend coffee. That's right. Until while supplies last. Right now, I just got another shipment in, so we're pretty good. And I just dig giving stuff away. So get your Game Changer membership, and the links are below. And so after the show tonight, after the good doctor, Dr. Bruce Solheim, I am heading out to the Conscious Life Expo. Same thing that I do every year. I do Fade to Black on Thursday night. Head out. I get down to the LAX Hilton, upstairs, set up my booth, get ready, and then say hello to a few people, and then start the show tomorrow. The Conscious Life Expo kicks off tomorrow. I am, once again this year, it's 10 years in a row, the MC and the host for the event. So come and hang out with us. It's going to be amazing. Starts tomorrow. Tickets and info, if you haven't gotten them already, the links are below. Conscious Life Expo. My luncheon, the Disclosure Lunch, is sold out. So that sold out about a week ago. But everything else, tickets, extra events, the post-con, everything is right below at Conscious Life Expo. I'll see you this weekend. It is going to be amazing. I can't wait. I'm going to be posting all weekend. I'll be hanging out with you all live stream, just like I do every year. So it's not like I'm disappearing. And I will be back on Monday for Fade to Black. Even though I'm going to be down there Monday for post-con, I'm going to dash back, and I'll be here for Fade to Black on Monday night. All right. But tonight, Dr. Bruce Solheim, and he is a tenured history professor at Citrus College. He's a former Fulbright professor, scholar, U.S. Army aviator, defense contractor. And he has written a lot of books. He has chronicled his paranormal and extraterrestrial experiences in his Timeless series trilogy, Timeless Deja Vu, Timeless Trinity, and Anzar the Progenitor. And I said that right. And when you have a professor on the show, speech is important. His links are below, and they're over on our website, and they are throughout social media. I'm going to welcome to Fade to Black the one and only Dr. Bruce Solheim. Bruce.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. And I'm going to start with this, and I know that you're probably expecting that. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to say anything. I just won't do that. But what happened before the show tonight on the synchronicity level, that was a 10. That was a 10. That was an official 10.
I would agree. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. You have what? 30 million people in LA County, right? they have that happen. So I did, man. I made the phone calls. I was like, dude, you're not going to believe it just happened. I called another mutual friend, and he was like, "You what?" And I said, "Yeah, like it just happened." So that was bizarre. That was bizarre. So anyway, how you doing? And
okay.
We're neighbors, and we haven't had a chance to break bread, and we live this close to each other, and there's no excuse for that. I'm out here in Palmdale now, in the land of technology, where all the weirdness is going down, and you're right over the hill from me, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if I literally just drove over the hill, I'd just drive right into where you are. And does
anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Does it ever surprise you living where we do about the reports and the contact and backwards engineering and sightings and alien bodies buried in the desert? Right? Is it just normal for you and I now?
Well, I think there's a reason why I ended up here. I'm originally from Seattle, so I mean, there's weirdness there as well and strangeness, but I think there's a reason for everything, and there's a reason I ended up here. The reason we ended up being as close as we are and have this mutual friend. So all these synchronicities coming together, but and it's all coming to a head, as you know, in the last few years, especially. It's culminating into something that is going to be quite extraordinary. It's already pretty extraordinary. So it's to the point where I'm just not surprised. I'm not going to say I'm never surprised, but it just, okay, this makes sense.
Well, I say this so often. I feel bad for people that don't take the time to appreciate the universe and a synchronicity and a good deja vu. There are, most of the world doesn't give a crap. And when you stop and you actually understand the significance of something, like what you and I just went through about 20 minutes ago, that like I said, on the level that was a bona fide 10. That was like crazy town. I mean, that now the odds of that, right? The odds, play the lottery. that you'll hit the lottery before something like what just happened to us happens, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
the universe is a trippy thing. Everything is connected, isn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I see this, when I take my spirit walks and check in with Anzar and the others, my spirit guides and so forth. I get glimpses of this all the time, and I'm not going to say that I become like, it's blasé or whatever, because I'm just I marvel at it all the time and appreciate it, and I want more. I want to learn more, and there's no end to it. We're just opening it up. We're right at that very beginning of this, I think.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that it is something as simple as it's always been there, but you have to open your mind and your heart to it? And then once you do that, then that's it. It's just tumbling all around you all the time. Because there are so many that don't have a clue what we're talking about because they don't experience it. You know what I mean? Is there something that we do that opens the door?
Well, I think it's what I've been told, that it's a leap of consciousness. If you're willing to take that leap of consciousness, not a leap of faith, but a leap of consciousness, and when you have an experience and then you open yourself up, and you believe what just happened, then it opens you up for another experience, which then broadens your perspective and your belief, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And to tie it into a larger thing, which is what I've been told is what we're entering, is this era of reconversion. What I call an era of reconversion is where we take what ancient people knew and we're combining it with our modern technology and the breakneck pace that we have, and combining that to really understand this, as we head towards what they call the singularity, that we're heading towards. And we have to, brace for impact, because look at how fast technology is moving, and we need those ancient folks and how they understood their connection to the earth, to the cosmos, to the star people, right? They understood, and to animals and so forth. They understood those connections, and we've forgotten a lot of that. So in some ways, we look to the past, and then we're looking to the future, and we're just hurtling towards this singularity and hanging on for dear life. So it's kind of a strange combination of things that we're going through, and yeah, I think it's very important to keep an open mind and to explore it and not be afraid of it, because it's very easy to fall off in one extreme direction or another, to like go completely cuckoo, or to just, get so isolated and just none of it's true. And I'm just going to deal with what's right in front of my face or whatever, and so, it's not an easy thing for people. I sympathize with people who are not able to handle that, but, we're going to have to help them. We're going to have to help them.
I had on, I'm just going to say it, Mick West. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had Mick on the show, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And personally, I think he's an okay guy. Yeah. All right. I do. I really do. But he is such a skeptic that if something, he is the definition of cognitive dissonance. He is the perfect example of that, because if E.T. showed up at his door with his DoorDash, right? And there's a flying saucer sitting in his front yard, and E.T. gives him the side, he's going to close the door and go, I was a kid in a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, so, and that's what surprises me, because tonight we're going to be talking about E.T. human integration. Mm-hmm. Great subject. There are those out there that no matter what that may be in front of them, they're not going to cross the line. And so, right. And the reason why I bring up Mick West, I have this sighting, and he's on the show, and I go, Mick, you've got to stop with that, because I had a sighting. I'm with a group of people, 30 people. We see this 500 foot tall beer can twisting in the sky. Mm-hmm. And it's just there. And I go, now we all saw it, and then it just disappeared, and it was only up there for about 15 seconds. He goes, it's probably a kite. I go, I just told you. 500 foot mm-hmm. tall spinning can. I don't mm-hmm. know how else to explain it, but it was just in that shape. It wasn't a kite. Well, you were seeing it at a weird angle. Like, dude, just stop. There's nothing I can say. And I said, there's Mick, and the flip side to this is there's nothing that you can say that is going to change myself or anybody else what we witnessed that day.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's the part of ET human integration. We've got
Mhm.
a long road in front of us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when I taught that paranormal class at my college, I haven't taught it in several, since before the pandemic, but I had a couple of skeptics who took the class, and I enjoyed having skeptics in the class. And one of them was a pretty hardcore skeptic. He was a math professor, and he's a friend of mine. And he's a good guy, a really good guy, but he was there to debunk the whole thing, just to kind of, poke fun at it. And that was fine. I have a good sense of humor. That's fine. But by the end of the class, he was asking me questions about spirit animals, and he thinks that his cat, who had died several years ago, is haunting his house, or not haunting it, but still in the house. So he started to open up to things because he was surrounded by these very sincere, very honest people ranging in age from 18 to 80 who all had real life experiences, and he got to know them over the course of 7 weeks and respect them. And by the time, towards the end of the class, I'm not going to say he was a believer, but he was maybe a little agnostic. He was starting to ask questions. So something had gotten through to him. And now it was just with his cat, but that's something.
That's enough.
Yeah. Starts with the cat. That's fine.
Have you seen the new? It's called the new Marvels movie.
I haven't seen it, but yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it released yesterday. I couldn't wait. I love everything Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Watch it for the cats.
Okay.
Look, it's great. It's just the cat. Just watch it for the cat. That. The story's great. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
I still can't. The way that the cats are integrated into a story about the multiverse and time travel and faster than light and everything that Marvel deals with, as they get cats into the story and kittens, it's brilliant, man. I mean, it's just.
I love it.
Yeah, it's really well done. Okay, let's start with the definition, the idea behind ET human integration. Now, I understand this is a book project that you're working on right now. So let's start there so everybody understands what we're talking about.
Yeah, sure. Well, it all comes back to. I'm just going to take one step back. My first paranormal book was called Timeless, and the reason I decided to start telling my stories was because of my friend Gene Thorkelson, who died in 2016. He came to me in a vision, and I'd had these visions and experiences my whole life, but I was afraid to tell anybody. I thought I'd lose my job, when I was in the military or a defense contractor, I thought I'd lose my security clearance, whatever. And he convinced me to start telling these stories, and he gave me the title, Timeless, and he said, it's okay. Well, with this one, he at a certain point, I was asking him, okay, now who are these? And when I talk to him in these spirit walks that I take, these like meditative walks, I often talk to him, and I said, Gene, who are the aliens? And he said, Bruce, we are the aliens. And he's always very good about being very succinct, but it's like, well, what do you mean? Like you, Gene, you, where you are, he said, no, we, all of us, we are all aliens. So in other words, we are together. We are all of us are aliens. We are integrated. We are all, as Anzar says, and Gene says it too, we are one star family. So that's the whole idea behind it. And so he gave me, not only did he give me the title for the first book I wrote, he gave me the title for this one too. I call it We Are the Aliens. And it's a case of alien human integration. And I talk about, in particular, myself, so it's really a story of identity. What is my identity and how do I relate to this Anzar character that we talked about last time we were together, this ancient alien mystic? Is that really what he is, or is he some part of me? Because he told me that, that he had been around. He was the progenitor or progenitor, however you want to pronounce it. And but more than that, he is part of me. He said an aspect of him is an aspect of me. So the idea is that we are integrated. We are integrated. We are a family. We are connected. We are connected into the past. We are connected into the future. We're connected now. So that is the premise of it. And it comes down to that simple thing that Gene told me. He's so good at saying that. He said, we are the aliens. So that is the jumping off point for this book. And then the book goes into theories about time travel that, like I think you've talked to Michael Masters, right? He's probably one of the guys you've talked to. And his theory, that these are time traveling humans. And I think that is part of it. And I've verified that with Gene and with Anzar, that's part of it, but that's not the only thing. There's different alien races, but we're still all connected. We are integrated, and how that is even possible, because when you talk about skeptics, one of the first things they say, and I'm sure they've, when you had West on the show, one of the things they always say is, well, how could they come here? There's no way they could get here. It's too far away. But if you travel through wormholes, in other words, if you travel through a wormhole and you use the wormholes to travel, then they, in other words, they are us, right? And there is here, because we are connected. They are us and there is here. So they're not traveling as far as people think they are, because we're connected by wormholes. Now, I could get into the physics of, not that I'm a physics guy, I'm a historian, but it really goes back to Einstein and, wormholes and this idea of quantum entanglement. And that's how it all works. And physicists will explain it. People like Jack Serafati and people like that will explain it, or even Michael Masters. But the idea is that once you understand that, it makes it a lot easier to accept that this could be happening. You don't have to travel millions and millions of light years away when you have a wormhole that you could travel instantaneously, or as Einstein said, spooky action at a distance.
Yeah, well, what the hardcore skeptics need to let go of is thinking about the now, where we are now, because that's the only thing that they relate to. It's so easy to explain. If you and I if you and I went back to 200 years ago, 2000, and we said, actually, they're going to drive here from there. I know it's 300 miles, but they're going to drive. They're going to be here in 3 hours. Oh, come on. That's impossible.
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
There's no way. No. And today, of course, we laugh at that. And that's just a car, right? And I'm not even talking about an airplane or a rocket ship or any of that. So the idea of ET doing something really easy, like you and I getting in the car and me driving out to your place for a burger tonight, and I can be back home and in bed in a couple of hours and cover that kind of distance. That's black magic voodoo to somebody 200 years ago.
Oh, sure.
But you and I do it today because it's easy.
Yeah.
And that's so they need to stop with that. How would they do it? What do you mean? How would they do it? It would be easy for them. I can tell you that. and it's really that simple, so, and the idea of contact is when we pose these ideas just a few short years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I get it. We were thinking about nuts and bolts craft and an ET sitting in it for 10,000 light years, right? And just aimlessly flying across the vast distances of space. Today, we're smarter. And we understand things, and we're getting closer to understanding things differently. And so the idea of somebody getting here that doesn't have to be that much more advanced than us. I'm talking about 100 years. Where are we going to be in 100 years? Literally.
It's amazing, Jimmy, and I'll tell you, you never know when you're going to put something together. I was listening to a podcast with our friend Jeffrey Mishlove, right? New Thinking Aloud, and he was interviewing a guy named Carlos Airy, and he's a Cuban-born professor, history professor out of Yale. I think it's out of Yale. He wrote a book called They Flew, and you wouldn't even think it'd be connected to ET or anything, but it's about saints and how they would levitate and bilocate. So here's where it gets really interesting. How would they had witnesses? And of course, all of them became saints, which meant they had to go through a rigorous process through the Catholic Church to get canonized, which is not easy for them to get canonized. And for every saint that they documented as having bilocated or having flew, having levitated, there are probably 100 people who were found, that to be false or not enough evidence. So it's very rigorous, the standards that they use. Well, the way it's described by witnesses and the way it's described in the book is that they have, it's kind of like an interdimensional bubble that they're in when they levitate. An interdimensional bubble. And it's so, the way it was described is that they become like stiff, where even their clothing doesn't move. Like they'll move through the air, but their clothing, the air doesn't move their clothing. So they're there, but not there. They've entered another dimension, but they're in like this bubble, and they get there through what they call a spiritual ecstasy. That's how they get there. They get into this mode where they can bilocate. And there's famous ones where there were lots of witnesses, like St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa, who did it at the same time, which was pretty interesting. And then there's St. Joseph of Cupertino, who did it almost at will all the time. He was all the time. So you wouldn't think it would be connected, but the process of how they do it sounds to me a lot like the way that an ET craft works, or that ETs get around. What I would call an interdimensional vortex. That's what they do. They travel through space-time, and they are able to do that. And that's through wormholes and so forth. And I think that process, and that was back in the 1600s, they were doing and documenting this. So I don't think anybody's connected that to what's going on now, but I think that it was well documented. And the Catholic Church, I think there's who is it? Diana Pasulka. I'm not sure if you've interviewed her, but
I have.
Yeah, so I think she's written she has the connections to the Vatican, I think, in the Vatican archives, and I'm sure she's much more well versed on this in this than I am. But I read that and I heard that podcast, and I started to connect that, and I go, there is a connection there between how this whole process works. It really made the wheels turn in my head for how this is happening, and this idea of bilocation, especially. Because being in two places at once, and especially in the 1600s, when you're talking about you're simultaneously in the Southwest, in the Southwest of what would become the United States, and also in Europe, at the same time. So anyway,
and the other part, the science side of this, when we are. I have been taking, I don't like talking about this, but I've been taking some physics classes, right? And so in doing this and understanding like relativity and the theory of relativity and what it's been twisted and watered down, and what the public thinks it actually is, and what it is, and it's what's been pulled out of it is where we are today with wormholes and this and that. And it wasn't like this is what Einstein was writing. Relativity is two things relative to each other, how they are observed. Two people and how they see each other and how they observe and how they are relative to each other. That's the theory of relativity. Now, the equations and what comes out of that and the observation. Okay. All right. That's a whole nother situation. But the part about all of this when it comes to science that gets really, really funky is entanglement.
Yeah.
Because nothing goes faster than the speed of light, man. And I've been listening to these professors and talk about this. I'm like, they're not even listening to what they are saying. When you say nothing can go faster than the speed of light, but yet you say one particle here can affect and change another particle on the other side of the universe at the same time, I'm sorry, but that's a lot faster than the speed of light.
Exactly.
That's at the speed of now.
Yeah.
And understanding that right there, just understanding that and comprehending that right there, I can go toe to toe with any theoretical physicist that wants to deny the possibility of faster than light. Just right there with entanglement. And that answers so many different questions, doesn't it? Travel,
and
mind, communication.
Sure.
So and here's so when you go on your walks and you are asking questions and getting answers, do you feel that is from entanglement? Is it reaching into the connected universe, and that's where this is coming back to you?
Oh yeah. That's I have to go through certain preparations. I have certain things that I say and do in preparation to get ready. I have to raise my consciousness, because the way I see it, the interface that we have, what David Bohm would call the expletive or the explicate, not the expletive, the explicate order, the everyday interface that we have. I have to rise above that to the implicate order, where I can connect to the quantum world, to where the spirits are, to where the ETs operate. That's where I have to connect to, and they have to connect to me there too. So that's what I have to do. And I have to record it. So when I'm connected, I have to record what I'm saying and what I'm hearing so that I can remember, because I'm entering into this zone where I don't always remember what is being told to me. So that's why I have to document it. And then I come home and transcribe it. And anyway, that's part of the book too. I all those transcriptions, but that is what I do. So yes, that's what I have to utilize. I have to utilize the quantum entanglement, the quantum world. I always say, the spirit world, the alien world, and the quantum world are all the same thing. It's all the same, it's the same operating system, if you will. And what we're doing right now, this is just the interface, that we have. And every once in a while, we'll catch a glimpse, sometimes by accident, of that quantum world. We'll slip into it. We'll catch a little peek of it, unless you get into that, what the saints would call that spiritual ecstasy, so they can go, bilocate and levitate and all that stuff. Or for us, if we, meditate and do the things we do and have our paranormal experiences. So it's all the same thing. And it's fascinating. And I that's where I get my information, my downloads. Sometimes they'll come during the meditation, the spirit walk. Sometimes they'll come in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day. I'll, like hear something like a whisper in my ear, and I'll write it down so I don't forget what I just heard. And sometimes it'll make sense. Sometimes it won't at that moment, but maybe later I'll save it, so later it'll make sense. And
Do you ever do you ever have two-way communication?
Yeah. It's an intelligent conversation. I mean, I will ask a question, I'll get an answer. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, there's also, I mean, when you talk about like spirits that are like hauntings and things like that, I've gone into haunted areas where there's more like a tape loop thing going on, and that's not two-way. That's just something that's there, that's presenting to you. That's kind of like it's like a tripwire. You go in there and all of a sudden they start doing their spooky stuff, but it's almost like it's on tape or something, and you can't really interact very much with it. It's not a two-way kind of thing. But what I'm talking about on these spirit walks is a two-way communication, whether it's with Gene or Anzar or other people that I contact.
Now, with here's the question I have to ask, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
You're a tenured professor.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. How Grush just did his thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In front of the house, sworn testimony. You also dipped your toe in that water too, as well, right? In the defense side of things.
Yeah.
And you are now on a show. You've done all the shows, but talking about ET and communication, and is in the world of education, is it opening up where you don't give a crap anymore and it's okay to discuss these things, like where Grush is? Because you were also in Grush's position at one point too, as well, where this is a zone you just don't go into. Has the world changed that much where you're okay with it? Grush is okay with it. Are you okay with what Grush said?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to unpack there in what you just said. For one thing, I'm in a different place in my career than he is. He's a younger man than I'm 65. So if my college was to say, oh, you're a lunatic, we're going to get rid of you, Well, first of all, I'm a tenured professor. It's pretty hard to get rid of me, but I guess they, if they tried hard enough, they probably could. But so I'm not so worried about that. I don't have a security clearance anymore, so I'm not worried about that. But as a younger man, when I was working at Boeing on the B1 or B2 program, had a top secret clearance. Yeah, I wasn't about to start talking about that I could, I had alien experiences, or that I could talk to dead people and things. So that was something I wouldn't go there. So to me, I think he's a very brave man. That's my impression of him. And I haven't talked to him. I've talked to people who do talk to him and got messages through to him. And I said, it's very important for you, if you talk to him, please tell him I'm very proud of him. And I don't know him, so but I just want, as a fellow veteran, I want him to know that I'm very proud of him, because I know what he's sacrificing at his age. I mean, he's still a young man. So that part of it. However, and this happened the last time we talked, because last time we talked, I was in Ohio visiting my two older sons, and and this leads into kind of a sensitive area where it deals with what the government's doing to hide stuff. And my eldest son, works at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He's in the Air Force. He has Are
you okay with talking about this?
Yes,
okay.
I am. I am, because I'm tired of it. I'm a father. Well, first of all, I told my son I was going to talk about this, and he said, "I can't stop you, Dad." And I said, "That's right." Because he told me, "I can't control you." And I said, "You're right. You cannot control me. I'm your dad. I care about you. I love you. And I don't think it's right what's happening." So, and I've written to, so what happened is I wrote to members of Congress, and I was on your show. It was well known I was going to be on your show, because I tell everybody, hey, proud. I'm going to be on Jimmy's show, especially the first time, I mean, I'm proud the second time too, but
Right.
it's a cool thing. And anyway, I was planning to talk about that and other things and what was happening to my son at Wright-Patterson. And somebody broke into our hotel room while we were in there in the middle of the night, the day before our, on August 1st. We had our show on August 2nd. And they came into our hotel room, and my wife woke me up and said, "There's somebody in our room." So I got up, my full G.I. Joe combat mode, and went, and the door closed, and I went and opened the door, and there was a guy in construction worker clothes there, and he looked at me, and I was in my pajamas in shock, and he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry." And I go, "Oh, all right." And then the door on the other side of the hallway opened, and there were other construction workers in there. And they said, "Hey, Joe, come on in." And then he walked in there and the door closed, right? So I thought that was very bizarre. How did he get in our room? It was locked. Did he have a key? So something weird. So the next morning I went down to the front desk and I told them, I said, I said, somebody came into our room in the middle of the night, they must have had a key. And they said, "Well, you must have left the door open." I said, "No, we didn't leave the door open. He must have had a key." "Well, nobody can get into your door. That's ridiculous." And I said, "Well, they got into the door, that the lock's not broken. And how about you look and see who's in that room across the way, on the other side of the hallway." So the manager looked in the computer. There's nobody registered in that room. "Oh, really? There's nobody registered in that room." "Okay, well, that's very bizarre." And she said, and then she got all apologetic. "How about we just give you free meals the rest of your time here?" Because they had a restaurant there. And I said, "No, how about this? I'm going to be on Fade to Black tonight, because it was the night." I said, I need it. That's how I ended up in that weird conference room. Would that look like?
Remember the whole thing.
Yeah. So, and so they said, "Okay, yeah, we'll put notes in here for the night manager." So anyway, long story short, I went to that night to go to the show, and the night manager, the notes disappeared. She didn't have any notes, so I had to beg her to let me in to the conference room. I got in. While I was on your show, somebody came into our room again when my wife was alone in the room. They came into the room again when she was there alone, and she said, "Get out," or whatever. And then the person went out. So now, there's, I guess there could be a lot of different explanations, but I had sent, a couple weeks before I got there, I had sent a letter to several members of Congress about what I thought was going on at Wright-Patterson. And what I think's going on there is my son and several other guys in his unit, and they're security force guys, they're in the security forces, got sick suddenly, February 2023. And just terribly sick, like heart problems, breathing problems, muscle issues, neuromuscular problems, foggy thinking, just overnight. And they went in to be treated, and they at first they tried to tell my son it was just a night terror. That's what you had. And he said, "No, that's not it. This is something else." So they were going to do some tests. They were and then they canceled those. He was going to do a nuclear stress test because his heart, and they canceled that, and he couldn't work for months. He couldn't work. He had to go on sick leave. And so anyway, I asked him to get checked for radiation exposure because I had a feeling there was something connected to Wright-Patterson. And that's when I asked Anzar and my spirit friends, I said, "What do you guys think has happened?" And they told me, Anzar said, the contractors there at Wright-Patterson knew members of Congress were coming, and they are quickly trying to reverse engineer last minute stuff, got sloppy. They're getting ready to pack stuff up and move it somewhere to get it, to play a shell game for Congress. And they had to release a burst of radiation, and it made your son and these other people sick. And they don't want to tell anybody. And I said, "Well, that's horrible. I mean, that is awful." It's awful that they're lying to us about this stuff, and it's awful that my son is sick. So I'm going to do something about it. So I sent another letter to Congress, and several, all the ones on the UAP task force, all the, my member of Congress, all the senators involved, Jimmy. And that was from July until recently. I even sent one in January. I have not even got a form letter response. You know how I've written to Congress a lot. I get those form letters. Thank you for your concern, or what. It's always some written by a staffer, and it's a form letter. And nothing, not even a form letter. And I know why. And I even asked Anzar, I said, why is this? I suspected I knew what it was. And they said, because if they acknowledge your letter, they have to acknowledge the issue. This way they can pretend that it didn't happen or that they didn't get the letter, even though I've sent several plus emails too. No response yet. Now, am I afraid that, and I told my son, if you get a strange phone call from your company commander or your base commander, or somebody in a black suit shows up, a man in black shows up, just tell him, this is nothing to do with you. You didn't tell me to do this. It's your dad, and you can't control your dad. Your dad just loves you and wants you to be okay. And that's what I asked the members of Congress. I said, all I want is for you to take care of these guys, do whatever you got to do to take care of these guys. Don't pretend it didn't happen. What if it's something else, then find out what that is and take care of them, but don't pretend it didn't happen.
Anyway, now, I understand you haven't gotten a response.
Yes.
What about at Wright-Pat? Anything changed there?
Not that I know about. Now, I asked my son, what about these other guys? And he said some of them are gone. He doesn't even know where they are. So that's kind of weird. I need to follow up with that. So I need to. And now the thing is, Jimmy, he doesn't like to say too much because, he, like I said, he has a very high security clearance, because he not only, I don't know how much more I should say than that, but anyway, it's all has to do with me. I'm not putting it on him at all. He told me he was sick. I put it all together. He doesn't, he's not saying it was ET materials or anything. I'm saying that. Mm-hmm. Anzar's saying that. My spirit friends are saying that. That's what I'm saying. He hasn't said that, so that's my conclusion that I've drawn. He's just told me all of his symptoms and the things that have happened, and I put all that together. So I'm just asking for help from members of Congress, and they've ignored me. They've ignored me up to now. So
there's probably, it would go with any defense installation, but there are probably 3 locations in the world, and they're all here in the United States, and I'm talking about Edwards, I'm talking about Area 51, Groom Lake, and I'm talking about Wright-Pat.
Yep.
You bring up those 3 names with an issue tied to it, and you're going to get nothing. I mean, That's it. Those are the 3 spots. You're just not. Wright-Pat is too sensitive. And Groom Lake is too sensitive. Edwards Air Force Base is too sensitive. It's really that simple. There are things. It is so crazy for me in my world. So I totally understand. Like I said, you put Wright-Pat in a letter to Congress, and you've got issues, or to a senator, or to that. It's like it's dead in the water out of the gate. There's just nothing. When I know some things, and I
know you do, Jimmy. I know you know some things. I know, and
I can't say them on the air.
I know you can't. I know you
too quickly. The puzzle pieces get put together, and things get shut down. And I get that. I totally understand it, and that's what you're up against there.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember?
I didn't mean to put you in a bad or a tough position. but
No,
I'm just speaking as a father, but I'm elaborating on this how it impacts me talking about aliens and stuff. I don't care if my employer says, hey, you're nuts. We don't want you talking about it. But once you start messing around with my kids or my family, or you can threaten my job or whatever. Okay, fine. You don't want me to talk about aliens, whatever. I'm still going to talk about them. But once you start messing around with people I love,
do you remember when the workers out at Groom Lake that were burning toxic drums and chemicals, right, and aircraft in these pits, and they all got sick, and so they turn around, and a group of them, it was a big group of workers, and went to sue the state of Nevada. They sued the Air Force, they sued the CIA, and so forth, for health benefits.
Right.
And the case got thrown out of court. And you know why? Groom Lake doesn't exist.
Right.
It's just like that. It's just like that. You have nowhere to go with this.
Right.
We are not opening up what is going on there. We're not going to talk about it, and it's going to stay right there. And Wright-Pat, the Foreign Technology Division, I mean, we're just right there. Which foreign technology is anything that's not ours?
Yeah.
Right?
Area B.
Yeah.
Area B.
Yeah. So that's and I feel for you. That's a tough road.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long answer to your question, and I know what you're saying. And but it's interesting. I did dig up some weird little article, a statement by Jared Moskowitz. I think he's a congressman from, is he from Florida or whatever? I don't know, a Democrat from Florida. He said something about, what if we just say, hey, we're coming to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. What are you guys going to do? And I think that was around February, March, around that. I got to print out that article, but I remember he said something about that. So I don't know what happened as a result of that, but
well, they went out to the same thing happened. They went out. I think it was Gates.
Matt Gates, yeah.
Matt Gates, and and I'm trying to think of the three of them. Anyway, so they go out to the gates of an Air Force base, and they're like, we understand some stuff went down, and we would like to check out your data. And they said, no.
Right? Yeah.
Get in your car and go back to where you came from. You're not. Let me talk to the. No. We're from Congress. I don't care.
Yeah.
No. The answer is no. And how interesting is that? And when it comes to this, Bruce, the Air Force specifically, the Navy's been a lot more open, but the Air Force is pretty cocky with this, aren't they? They are so used to be able to say no, and that's it, and they're not going to talk about it. And they are above everything else. They're above the president. They're above the senators and any elected official or local law enforcement. They're very comfortable in that cockiness.
Yeah. I saw just the other day, I saw they're starting to revive the old Project Blue Book, not the swamp gas, but this time they said it was plasma or something. They're trying to say, oh, well, whatever they saw on these, the gun sight video or whatever. Oh, no, that was just plasma. That was, whatever. It's not, these aren't craft, these aren't, UFOs or UAPs or whatever. So it's like they're recycling these old stories. And then you got that letter that came out from Sean Kirkpatrick, just a week or two ago, just saying, which this is, he's put out a couple of things, but there's what I call a parade of debunkers at a very high level that are really putting on a full court press to try to put a lid on this as quickly as possible. And it's just not going to work ultimately, Jimmy, because as in my book, what I talk about is once the wheel starts turning of what I call revelation, not disclosure, because disclosure is other directed. That's where we sit and wait and hope that the government tells us the truth. Revelation is where we let it come from within. We understand from within what the truth is. It's grassroots until it just becomes an overwhelming force. And then it collides with disclosure and with the singularity. And then it becomes just obvious, what the truth is. And I think that's what, I don't think they can ultimately keep a lid on it anymore. They've done a pretty good job of keeping a lid on it for quite a while, and they're still trying, but ultimately it's not going to work.
Do you think that that Grush caught everybody by surprise? Now, there was a certain amount of movement going on. Him with the IG, his past. There was some chatter going around. He had his documents. He had his things, and there was stuff that was presented to Congress. There was some chatter, but my mind says that there were those in the military and the establishment and Lockheed and so forth that were like, okay, all right, you guys can do this, but you can't let it go too far. And then Grush turns around and just blah, 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 right? And that was like, okay, now we got to pump the brakes. Okay, it was okay with the Tic Tac video. It was okay with it, but now we've gone too far, and that Kirkpatrick backs up, and you know what I mean. Everything seemed to like pull back. Do you think that that's what was going on?
Yeah, I think there's different factions. I think there's one faction that like the kind of slow rolling. Slow walking disclosure, drawn out over time. And then there are probably factions within the intelligence community or defense community or the government who would like to accelerate that a little bit. And maybe that's who Grush represents, kind of that part of it. And then there are those that are old line Project Blue Book types, who let's keep the charade going on. It's just swamp gas, probably those guys too. And so I think there's competing factions because as we know, the government is not monolithic. There's factions within it, that competing factions. So I think that they don't have a monolithic viewpoint. And I think they're arguing amongst themselves how this is going to be presented. And Grush represented one particular group that kind of snuck through in that IG. I mean, good job there that they authorized him to do it. Otherwise he couldn't have, but he's still handcuffed, and even with the, making all those statements he made, the most interesting questions, you get to it and they say, well, we have to talk about that in a skiff. Well, the problem is for us, Jimmy, is once they put them in a skiff, the members of Congress, they can't talk about it. And they can't even if they have talked about it before, if it gets confirmed in a skiff, now they can't talk about it anymore, because now they'll get accused of revealing a state secret or national security breach, and they could be prosecuted for that. If you get told something in a skiff, even if it's something that you knew before, now you can't talk about it again. So it kind of, the skiff doesn't help us necessarily. It just puts more of a clamp down on the truth. So
well, okay. Here. Let me ask you this. as an intellectual, I'm not. Right? I'm not. I just play one on TV. Is this what is the secret of why keep life in the universe from us? That's it's such a fundamental question, but it's like telling us that goldfish, they're a secret. We can't tell you about goldfish. Well, but I see them. Yeah, I know, but we can't talk about it. What do you mean? It's nature, and that's and that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Why deny the fundamental question of all time? Are we alone? Right? Why keep that from us? I don't care about petrochemicals. I don't care about petrodollars. I don't care about anti-gravity. I don't care about you keeping it a secret from us and you got caught in a lie. I don't care about the free energy part. I don't care. All of that we can work out later. Maybe we'll work it out in the courts, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't care about any of that. Let's just get down to the basics. That's it. Why keep that from us?
I think it comes down to this, and it ties into the paranormal, and it seems like, UFO people and the paranormal people, they like to be separate, have a wall between them, but really they're tied together, because I think it's very clear that the way these craft operate, the UAPs operate, is with psi. You have to have psychic ability integrated, once again, talk about integration, integrated into whatever this craft is. It's part machine and part biological, so you have to have that psychic ability to do it. And so in order to reveal that we have these visitors, that we have these aliens, or that we're related to these aliens, which would be even more mind-blowing, I guess, in some ways, is you would also have to admit that that telepathy is real, that psychokinesis is real, and that they use it, and that we can learn it, and that we're heading in that direction. And once you do that, what's going to happen? I mean, then you got my
answer to that, Bruce, is so what?
I think it's great, but what they're afraid of is, well, wait a second. That means that if people start using telepathy, they're going to know what we're up to. They're going to be able to use clairvoyance. They're going to be able to use remote viewing at will. They're going to know our state secrets. They're going to know what we're doing in Washington. They're going to be able to, control, to do psychokinesis, to make things happen. And, and it's going to be chaos, and we're going to lose control. We're going to lose control of the situation. And it's all about control. As we know, that's what it's all about, is keeping control.
It's such a deep philosophical question. Yeah. But here's the thing. Rip the Band-Aid off. The word, just get it over with, man. Just get it, pull the tooth out. Right? Just get it done, because the other side of it, if you deny, and you get caught in a lie, that's how many times did your parents tell you that growing up? Just tell me the truth and it'll be all right.
Yeah.
Right? But no, you're not going to do it. You're not going to tell the truth. You're going to stick with the lie. Then you get caught. That sucks. And you got to deal with it then. And it's always much worse. So that's rip the Band-Aid off now. What is the government going to do when something flies over Los Angeles? What's the government going to do when James Webb, Space Telescope discovers something? There was just a headline today. I'll pull it up right here. There was just a headline. I'm doing it on my phone, man. I got a thing here called a computer. Just before the show, I see this headline, And the headline is, they've now discovered another potentially habitable. This is the headline on one of the major media outlets. I'm not going to say which one, but Fox, CNN, BBC. The headline is potentially habitable super Earth spotted 137 light years away. And by the way, that's friggin' close, right? We're talking next door, right?
Yeah.
So astronomers have discovered a super Earth, a world larger than our planet, about 1.5 times the size. The super Earth is known as TOI 715b, orbits red dwarf star that is cooler and smaller than our sun. Astronomers spotted the planet using NASA's TESS, or Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite mission. A study detailing the discovery was published at the Royal Astronomical Society. Researchers have determined now. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of it. You know what? The Goldilocks zone that they found this in is the conservative zone. Okay, so you have a Goldilocks zone, right? Okay, it's like this, but the conservative zone is like where at the very, very, very conservative numbers, and it's there. It's like where it needs to be for water. Not a little bit, no. It's in the conservative zone. And they are freaking out about this. They are freaking out. And this is the problem that the government needs to deal with, because we are looking, and we, science and citizen amateur astronomers, are going to make a discovery, and that's, you better rip the Band-Aid off now. That way it's easier to deal with.
Yeah, and they'll probably what they would like to do is start far away and say, well, okay, yes, far away, and then they'll get progressively closer and closer until they say, by the way, they've been here the whole time, and guess what? Yeah, we're the aliens, just like my book, we are the alien. That's what it's eventually going to come down to, that. But they want to start farther away where, maybe people can accept that a little bit easier, and that'll be more, digestible, well, using, so, and then slowly get it closer to us until they're right here on top of us in interdimensionally and in every other way. And they've been here the whole time, and they're going to be here. That's probably the way they would like it to go. Although I think that there are different factions that would like to accelerate that. And, but I'm all for, let's just go for it, because we're heading towards that singularity, and we need, because if we don't get it together, there's a possibility we could hit some kind of, like in a computer, you have a restore button, right, where you go back to the original programming, and if we're not careful, we could end up going back to some feudal time, and not make it, and we could all be living in the dark ages again, and I don't want that to happen. I want us to embrace modern technology as we hurtle into this singularity. And to do that, we have to understand our connection to ET and the fact that we are integrated with them, and that we're all together and we need each other. We need each other, humans, ETs, we're all together, animals, all of us. Let's all work together.
It doesn't take much to go backwards.
Yeah.
Let's say we just went through a pandemic, right? Okay. Yep. So let's say the next pandemic next year only affects engineers, electrical engineers, structural engineers, right? Only wipes them out. And you're a professor, right? You and I end up on an island that's got all of the resources. It's got sand. right? Silicon. It's got metal. It's got aluminum. It's got gold. It's got everything. It's got oil. It's got everything there. Are you and I and our friends building a factory to make cell phones anytime soon? No.
I don't think so.
At 1,000 years from now, we probably wouldn't have these yet. It would be like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you and I know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
We know what it does. We know what the function is. But you and I aren't building a car, right? We're not doing any of that.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't even know how you and I would weave clothes. Do you know how to do you know how to knit? I mean, what would we do?
I know.
What would we do? No, it's really that simple. Let's take our break right here. Break. Stay right there. We're going to take a break. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now.
My job is not to preach. My job is to take you on this journey.
In a state of passion, nothing negative can happen.
That it's the moons of those planets that would have life.
Sometimes I see, these energies also in your field.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest, Matt LaCroix. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours, or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. And right now, if you get a Game Changer membership for a limited time, you will get Fade to Black blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. That's right. We have 2 t-shirts. We have the original, the classic Fade to Black t-shirt. You know you want one. Post a picture, send it to us. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery. And we've got the new official Fade to Black t-shirt drawn by Michael Oming. 2 t-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yours today. Everything is in stock. Everything gets autographed. Everything includes shipping. And you're going to get a tracking number. And with the Game Changer membership, you get an email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads of the show. Those are uploaded every single night after the show to the website. So don't delay. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Dr. Bruce Solheim is with us, talking about ET and human integration. And here's the deal. It's the old song, right? We are Stardust. And ET visiting us, they're coming to an alien world. Right? They are, if just in the pure definition of it, right? But the particles on the other side of the universe are the same particles here. A star died so you and I could live and have children and think, right? The particles are particles, elements are elements, atoms are atoms. That's it. Electrons are electrons. Quarks are quarks. We're all made of the same stuff. Why are we so freaked out about the idea of life out there? Life should be everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that this idea that we are a star family, that's when I do these spirit walks and I talk to Anzar, I use the term alien, which is the term that we usually use. And he can be funny sometimes. He'll say, "Well, hold on a second. How would you like to be called alien?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "Well, look it up." And I didn't think about it, but then I looked it up in the dictionary, and which is good to look in the dictionary every once in a while. And I looked at all the definitions, and they're all kind of negative. All these negative definitions, things that are not very nice. When you look up alien, I mean, anybody can look it up and you'll see they're not very friendly, not very good definitions. So I said, "Well, if you don't want to be called an alien, what do you want to be called?" And he said, "Well, because we're related, how about star family?" And, which is what the Aborigines say. They call them star people or star family. And I think the Native Americans, most of them in North America, they call them the star people, right? So that it's, they knew what the proper nomenclature was, I guess. So you're right, Jimmy. I mean, we're all made of the same stuff, so.
The scientific evidence in front of us that we have facts. I keep talking about this. We have facts, and then we have the truth. The truth is out somewhere behind the facts. Okay, that's just, we're trying to get to the truth. Science runs that way. Our life runs that way, right? So science is looking at the facts, and so here's a fact: we know that basic sugars are floating around on asteroids and meteors and arriving here and crashing into this planet. We just got the stuff back from Bennu, right? Osiris Rex. And we're finding amino acids, the building blocks of RNA. RNA is the instruction set. It's a single strand instead of a double helix of DNA. RNA, the building blocks of RNA floating around in space, crashing into planets. Now, those are the facts. Now let's get to the truth that is behind that. If that's the case, that says to me that the truth is RNA and DNA are all over the universe. And there is the only assumption you can make off of that is that intelligent life is out there. Some is basic before us. Some of it is much more advanced than us. Some is exactly the same as us. But DNA is universal. RNA is universal. And that is the truth behind the facts of amino acids floating around in space. That's crazy town, right? So we are Stardust. We're all made of the same stuff, and we should not be surprised if ET shows up here and looks fundamentally like us.
Yeah. I mean, they tend to be rather humanoid looking, which is the point that Michael Masters makes in his book, Identified Flying Objects. And I think the follow-up book to that too. And the idea, even the more bizarre looking ones like the insectoids and the reptilians, they still have a general kind of humanoid shape, to them, as if there's some genetic manipulation going on. And when I was in one of the early chapters in my book that I'm writing, I talk about the impact that the movie Planet of the Apes had on me when I was a kid in 1968. Went to a drive-in theater. My sister took me, and she took me to see a double feature at the drive-in. One was Planet of the Apes, the first one. And then the second feature was the Raquel Welch movie. What was it, 10,000 BC or whatever it was? I was
10,000. And Barbarella was the other one. She made those two back to back.
And I was too young to appreciate Raquel Welch, at that time, but I do. And my sister always laughed about that. But the Planet of the Apes, that left such an impression on me. And this idea that they crash landed and they didn't know, they thought they were on another planet. And here they are, they find out they're on Earth in the future and apes are now in charge, this idea, but so that left an impression on me. And then in a comic book series that I read by Jack Kirby called Kamandi was also a post-apocalyptic thing where all the animals had taken over, not just apes, but like tigers and lions and other animals had taken, and they were the intelligent species, the top species or whatever. So, this idea that they're, that they have to look exactly like us, I don't think is necessarily true. And that, there could be genetic, manipulation. And then we do know that, there's a lot of people who talk about hybridization, these alien human hybrids. And, there are plenty of people who've talked about those experiences in abduction experiences, where they've had their genetic material taken from them so that it's all so fascinating, and it really points to the same thing that we are all connected, that we are all connected, and that there's a point to this. And the point is that we have to come together. They're obviously very interested in us and in this planet. There's something very special and unique about the Earth. Now, this other planet that you had mentioned that the Webb telescope is finding, I'm sure that'd be fascinating to find out, someday what's going on there, but there's something very special about what we have here. So, and I don't think that enough people appreciate how, the stewardship that's going to take, and how we have to work together. I think of, I'm my parents are Norwegian, right? So I think of the explorer. You've heard of the Kon-Tiki, the Kon-Tiki raft. Thor Heyerdahl, he went across the South Pacific to show that the ancient Peruvians had done that, to populate the Pacific, the South Pacific, on these balsa wood rafts. And he went with different nationalities and on board the ship. And he said what it proved was that they needed each other to survive. And he said that's really, in a microcosm, what's going on in the entire Earth, that all these different religions and ethnicities and nationalities, we all need each other to survive on the, in this tumultuous world. That they couldn't afford to be fighting on the high seas on this balsa wood raft. But he said, we're really just all on a raft, just barely surviving. And we can't afford to be fighting each other. And maybe that's one of the lessons that we're finally going to learn as we become closer to who we really are. And I think part of who we are is ET. So I come back to that. I keep coming back to the title of my book. I'm sorry, but I'm caught up in it. Sorry. It's where my mind is right now.
But here's where you're right. Okay, 137 light years away is close.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it matters, why it's a big deal. If something is a million light years away, intelligent life looking at our planet, and they're looking at us, what are they going to see? Right? Well, they're going to see the Earth a million years ago. All right? Okay. And I'm going to circle back to the dinosaurs in just a second. Something 137 light years away, they're looking at the Earth in 1900. That's a techno signature. We've got pollution. We've got the Industrial Revolution going on. We've got Marconi and radio waves and Tesla and antenna. That 137 light years away is close. They're not looking at primitive Earth. They're looking at modern civilization here. And we are doing the same thing. We're looking at that planet as it gets to us 137 years ago. All right, that's 137 light years. That is tremendously close. Yeah. And the other reason why that is important is that anything that we have sent out, which is radio waves, television. Today, everything is digital and it's cables, and we're not sending out the radio waves that we used to, but we did. And so we should be expecting a response back anytime soon. And if you just think about it in those terms, we should not be surprised. We have sent the beacon out. Right, for a long time, saying, here we are. And this is where we are right now, technically. We have electricity, we have radio, we have television. We are moving forward. And certainly the atomic detonations went off, and I'm sure that they detected those too as well. And I'm not talking about one civilization. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of exoplanets that are right here in our neighborhood. And we really need to stop and take notice of that. And here's the other thing. And I want your comment on this. You brought up insectoids and reptilians and so forth. If the asteroid doesn't hit the Earth 65 million years ago, technically humans don't happen. The dinosaurs were the dominant species, right? Yeah. So do the dinosaurs evolve and build radio telescopes? right? And that's the part where when we talk about reptilians and the idea behind that, if we think about the significance of what I just said, that asteroid doesn't hit. ET's looking at this planet and they're looking at dinosaurs. But over those 65 million years, no asteroid, what is here now? Do we have a technical, does life evolve, right? Does it like it should on the rest of the, and do we have reptilians running the planet? That's a very interesting question. Sure. And that's why when people talk about reptilians, I don't dismiss it right away. I don't think it's fantasy. I really don't.
I think you bring up a good point, and it reminds me of I was listening to a podcast with he was a German guy, and he was a biologist, and he was talking about evolution, but he was talking about how it couldn't account for all the mutations. It's too slow. That there had to have been some genetic manipulation. And then when we talk about what we're doing, and I know you've heard about this, Jimmy, and many of your listeners probably have too, this CRISPR technology. You know, it cracks me up, CRISPR. But anyway, this CRISPR technology where we can do this genetic gene splicing, right? And if we can start doing this and creating these odd hybrid things, these advanced civilizations, which these ETs would more than likely, most of them represent, that would have some contact with us, probably have wildly gone beyond just CRISPR to the crispiest technology, you know, and deep fried. Exactly. And they can make anything. I mean, they can make any kind of thing, humanoid looking reptilian thing, whatever, you know, insectoid, you know, whatever. And so it just really made me think about how, and they could do it fairly quickly. Not just, it wouldn't take millions of years to do this. If you can do this kind of genetic manipulation within a certain number of iterations, it wouldn't take that long to make those changes. So no, I think you're onto something there, Jimmy.
Well, and here's that idea, and this is, I keep going back to science and anthropology, and certainly we've come a long way in 300 years. Copernicus and Galileo and Newton and where we are today. Yeah, but we're still pretty stupid. But the big scale. But here's where science is freaking me out. We, Homo sapiens, have 46 chromosome pairs. Okay? Mm-hmm. Primates have 48. There's a lot of genetic information in those two pairs. A lot. Why us? What makes us better than chimpanzees or apes, spider monkeys? What's the difference that we can't mate? The chromosome pairs don't, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't work. So there's no crossbreeding. There's nothing like that. And here we are with two less chromosome pairs. How did that happen and when? That's the part where when you bring up CRISPR and the possibility of that, I just point to science right there and go, look, the evidence is right there. Explain to me how we lost chromosomes 3 and 4, which we did, right? Mm-hmm. We lose those. We go from 48 to 46, and we become the dominant species. We evolved into storytelling and landing on the moon. Mm-hmm. And wait. I need help understanding that part, unless something intelligent interfered and knew exactly what they were doing. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that in the end, I don't know how far in the future I'm talking about, but in the end, it's people like you and myself and others that are going to be on the right side of history here. I don't think we're on the wrong side.
Well, you're getting into something. I think what they talk about there is intelligent design rather than just the natural evolution. That there's got to be more to it than that. And everybody agrees with this idea of the Big Bang. You know, I mean, that pretty much, whether they're creationists or scientists or hardcore whatever, you know. But intelligent design is the idea that there was a tampering or a manipulation, a gene splicing or a genetic manipulation, which in my spirit communication with Anzar, that's why he calls himself the progenitor. You know, that was part of what they did. You know, that's what he said they did. And that's why we are who we are. And that's why we're connected to them. And it all makes sense to me. I mean, now, do I know exactly how it works or exactly when that happened or all that? No, I don't know, you know, but it does make sense to me. And and going back to this idea of hybridization or the integration of humans and aliens, and this idea that, once again, I'm using the term alien, but, this idea that we are a star family, that this is a process that's ongoing. And I know you've probably had people on your show talking about, alien hybrids, and, I'm pretty sure you have.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is a topic that a lot of your listeners are familiar with. So, myself, I've never talked about I've never talked about it publicly because it's a weird thing, Jimmy. And I'll tell you what Gene tells me. Gene tells me whenever I'm afraid to talk about something, Gene says, "Hey, listen, Bruce," he said, "you've already talked about so many unusual things. Why are you afraid to talk about this?"
Yeah, pretty much you're out of the closet, Bruce. Pretty much.
Yeah. He said, "I don't get it," so he's always trying to push me, So this idea that what happened was that I had this download. I had a lucid dream. It was a very powerful lucid dream, vision, more than just a dream, And I was introduced to alien hybrid children. And it was such a powerful vision. I mean, such a powerful vision. And, I can describe it in great detail. In fact, I drew a picture of it the next day. I had an artist, professional artist, do a rendition of it. There were 4 of these little, like toddler size, little smaller alien hybrids in this tank. There was like a jelly-like coating over it, but they were in like a golden liquid. There was a light underneath it. And I was there looking at them, and there were 3, what I would say, tall grays there. And I was panicking. I was saying, they look like they're gasping for breath. I got to get them out of there. They're drowning in there. And somehow I feel connected to them. And these aliens are saying, no, you're not allowed to get them out of there. And I said, how could you stop me from wanting to save these children? They're obviously suffering. And so I'm freaking out, thinking that I'm supposed to, cut them out of this, what essentially the covering of it kind of is like a placenta or something. I mean, it has that kind of consistency to it. And the children are suffering, and these, I call them controllers. There's these 3 tall grays are saying, no, you're not supposed to take them out of there. What you're supposed to do is teach them how to love. They don't know how to love. So I'm going, okay, but I need to get them out of there so they can breathe. And they're not letting me do it. They're it's all telepathic, but it's also psychokinetic because they won't let me do what I want to do. And when I try to go I get far enough to where I can break their control and try to cut the gelatinous material. But as soon as I cut it or try to cut it, it heals back up again, and they're still in there. So it becomes clear to me now that these are my children. These are not somebody else's alien children. These are mine, and there's 4 of them, and one of them's a girl. I have 4 children myself. I have in this world 3 boys and a girl, and there's 3 boys and a girl in this vision. And ultimately, long story short, I come to accept the fact that I have to just love them. That's what I'm supposed to do, communicate with them and teach them how to love. And so at that point, I give in to the 3 controllers, and I just say, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And at that point, they start to, the children seem to be doing better. They're like healing. Okay. But in my dream, I was like crying, and it was just very emotional. And it affected me for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I was like traumatized by this. And it was, and so I had to go talk to Yvonne Smith, right? So the hypnotherapist, I had to go talk to her, and I said, I need to get more information. This is just so devastating to me. And I did get more information, and I got more details. And I asked her some questions, and I said, one question I had was, why don't I ever hear men talking about hybrid children? Whenever you hear somebody talk about it, it's always women saying, oh, I have a hybrid baby. I was taken, and my baby was taken from me, and then I was suckling it or holding it or whatever. And you never hear men talking about it. And I said, how many men have had these experiences with hybrid children? And she told me, and this shocked me, Jimmy. She said about 50%, about half
all of them. Right?
Yeah, 50%. 50% women, 50% men. And then I said, okay, well, how many are willing to talk about it? And she said, oh, well, only about 1/3 will talk about it. So there's my reluctance, because even the idea when I would hear women, and this is where I feel really bad, Jimmy, I'd hear women, I'm talking about Anzar and talking about ETs and human integration with aliens and all that. And then I'd hear women talking about alien babies, and I'm thinking, oh, that's just a bridge too far for me. I thought, okay, that's where Gene shakes me, and says, wait a second, you believe all these other things. Why can't you believe this? It's all true, Bruce. Come on now. Come on, stick with me here. And then I felt really bad after the stream that I had that attitude. Not that I was going around making fun of them, because God forbid I would do that. I didn't do that. But I just, was reluctant to, engage in that. And then when I had that experience, I realized, wow, okay, this is something. There is something to this. This is a real phenomena. And it was extremely powerful.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think that it was a projection, that you were being taught something, or
Yes.
do you think that it was a real situation?
I think it was both. I think I actually asked a friend of mine who's he's a scientist, and he's I forgot his actual. He's a biological, anyway, I don't know what, he's a scientist, right? And I asked him about it, and he said, part of it he said, I believe that this is possible, that there are, these hybrid type, that there is this program going on with, alien hybrid children or whatever. But he said there's also the psychological aspect of it too. He called it a psychodrama, where they set up these psychodramas where they want to see your response to these alien children to see if you can love them and if you can show them love, and if you can. They want to put you in kind of this Old Testament situation where they're obviously looks like they're dying, but you're not able to help them. And instead of cutting them out of this, this tank where they seem to be drowning, instead you just love them, and that's how you save them. You have to trust these controllers that that's what it is. So you have to, in other words, it's kind of like the biblical story where he went up to who was it, Abraham, or I think it was, I don't know, I'm not a biblical scholar, but he was supposed to kill his son or whatever, and then the God intervened and said no. It's almost a biblical kind of thing. It's a intervention in that way. It's like a psychodrama where they're all fine. They all turned out okay, but it was a test for me to see how I would respond.
Well, that's because of our modern programming.
Yeah.
We think that we know too much.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this: if the same situation was going down 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, where we don't have the alien invasion movies, that we've watched, and something like that goes down, it's an absolute nothing burger, right? It would be nothing. You're not predisposed to thinking strange thoughts, aliens, ET, off-planet, hybrid program, genetic materials being removed, what Barney Hill screaming during his regression. And is there, no, and none of that comes into play 5,000 years ago. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Today it freaks us out. So sure, I would understand that approach. You have to have a softball pitch underarm thrown at you. It's got to be done that way. It can't come rushing at you because you will freak out. Absolutely. I mean, it's a hard thing for people to wrap their heads around. But 5,000 years ago, what? It's I don't think anybody would. You know what I mean? The way that they would relate to it would seem totally normal to them, which is why. But you bring up a really good point, though, and that is this: 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, the talk of religion and gods and angels, Moses and burning bushes and things in the sky guiding people through the desert, and that was all okay to talk about.
Yeah,
it was fine, and nobody had issues with that, right? But today we can't talk about ET or ghost or the paranormal. No, but it's all the same. So they dealt with it differently thousands of years ago. Think about how the Egyptians dealt with death and the afterlife and the way that they approach things, and but other cultures too. It wasn't just the Egyptians, but you can't do that today. You can't.
Yeah, well, it's part of the thing of going back to ancient people and learning from them, relearning what we knew before, what our ancestors knew, and combining that with what we know today as we head into this technological singularity. I think that's the holistic approach that we need to take to survive. And we can't ignore what we knew before. This connection that we had. I mean, they might have called it other things. A burning bush rather than a craft, or whatever. But I think it is the same thing.
What, can you, as we close, and I want to thank you for this conversation tonight. But for those that haven't heard us talk before, and your links for your books and everything else are below, and everybody can go and check those out. But who is Anzar, And
Yeah.
how did you guys get introduced?
Yeah, Anzar is he's been with me since I've been around. He's intervened in my life several times. He really introduced himself in 1997 as Anzar the Progenitor, which means the one who started everything, the one that created everything. And since that time, I have tried to, express it to other people, this special connection I have, but I was kind of shut down, my colleagues and so forth. So it wasn't until 2016 when my friend Gene died and had a vision, I started writing my stories that I started talking about him and connecting with him in spirit walks or meditative walks. So Anzar is he says he's the progenitor. That's the name he gave me, other than the progenitor. That's why my book was called Anzar the Progenitor. He has called himself an ancient alien mystic, but he's also part of him is part of me. That we are connected. We are star family. So the more I learn about him, the more I learn that he's part of me and I'm part of him. So that's basically who he is. That's who I get most of my downloads and information from when I go on these spirit walks. And a lot of my friends at CIRO, which is the Close Encounter Resource Organization, I share those spirit walks with them and Anzar. They're very familiar with Anzar. And at first, a lot of them were kind of, well, who is this Anzar character? And after a while, after a couple of, I'm not going to say predictions, because he says predictions, don't always come true. But he said, there's a difference between prophecy and predictions. Prophecy is where you use the present and the past to kind of see where the direction of things are going, the variables and everything. That's kind of, a lot of those things became true. And they started to say, oh, okay, yeah, this Anzar guy's making sense. And then my friend Lucy actually saw him at a CIRO meeting. And we had a pretty strong synchronicity, very, almost as strong as the one we had before the show. And with Anzar. And so anyway, that's who Anzar is. I continually talk to him every time I take a spirit walk. So, and he figures prominently in this latest book that'll be coming out here in a couple months.
Well, that was my next question. When is the book release?
It'll be probably, I have a good working draft now. I'm just editing it. So I'm thinking in about 2 to 3 months, somewhere around there. That's a conservative estimate. It might be less than that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. And I can't wait, A, to read it, but B, to get you back on the show and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so get it done. Mm-hmm. And I cannot wait. Just give me a call next week. After you speak, I'll just say his first name, Lee. And that is going to be...
I know, that'll be fun.
That look on his face. I mean, it's good. I'm just telling you. It's going to be very interesting. But Bruce, thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
And enjoy your weekend. Go finish the book, and I'll look forward to our next conversation.
Take care, my friend.
Dr. Bruce Solheim. That was a perfect show. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. I am literally heading to the Conscious Life Expo. I will see all of you this weekend. I'll be posting pictures. Social media is going to be happening. I'll do some live streaming, and I'll see everybody at the conference tomorrow. If you're there tonight, I'll see you tonight. I am on my way and hitting the road. The information, the website, tickets, and everything else for the Conscious Life Expo, the links are below. And I'll see you this weekend at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. It is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Post-con is Monday. Thank you, Bruce. Perfect night on the show. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you, Bill. Busy night. Thank you, John Aside. Even busier. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Everybody have a great, safe, fun, and amazing weekend. You know I am. And I'll see you right back here on Monday. Until then, go back, Lee Tappy.